Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of March 11th. The public is invited to the open house of Fire Station Number 5 on March 21st at 2 p.m. at 801 Southwest Layman's Lane. Receive a behind-the-scenes look at the new facility, hear from Mayor Baird and Chief Snyder, and witness the unique hose uncoupling ceremony. Light refreshments will be offered. Be sure to sign up for the city's free alert system, LS Aware. Receive emergency and non-emergency information by text, email, or phone for events such as severe weather and road closures. You choose how you want to be notified. Learn how to sign up on the city's website. Stay connected with the city. We have several email newsletters to keep you informed about everything going on in Lee Summit. The Council Debrief recaps city council meetings. The city portal has the latest news and information about the city, and the Flyover is your one-stop shop for airport news. You can subscribe to all of them on the city's website. And have weekend plans? Grab the family and head downtown Lee Summit to celebrate St. Patrick's Day during Shamrock the Block on March 16th from 10 a.m. to noon. Families can enjoy live performances, kids games, food trucks, candy, and more. Find more information at downtownls.org. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
Like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person, and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
Member Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a few of us are getting questions. I know I've gotten a few questions about the plan, so I didn't know if, just for the public knowledge. I'm not a politician. I feel like I'm just an average person in Lee Summit. They have a football field set up. Inside these cones are their football field. Our 2-car garage is we're gonna bring the driveway back through here, and it's gonna go right here. And then, so my family has chickens. When we first got chickens, my husband said, don't treat them as your pets, treat them as chickens, because we're going to be eating the eggs, and I would like to use them for meat. So don't treat them as your pets. Well, we now have 6 chickens that I consider my pets, and I will not let him kill for meat. So we live downtown, and we love living downtown. These are my children. The first one's Lincoln, and Amira, and Sophia, and Caleb. This is a great neighborhood. Downtown is one big community, and all of the kids get together and they play basketball, and we like to walk to the farmer's market. Here, hold my hand. It's an easy walk, probably less than 10 minutes. The farmer's market has always been a very important part of my life and my family's life. As a matter of fact, when my daughter started kindergarten, I dropped her off and I was going shopping at the farmer's market right behind Lee Summit Elementary. And I was teary-eyed because she was my first and she was going off to kindergarten. And Terry, the butterfly lady, the one that's in the purple shirt, and she used to make little butterfly stickers for everyone, she gave me a big hug and was just so empathetic to the fact that my daughter had just started school. How are you guys doing? Doing well, how are you? Yeah, very good. A lot of the farmers there, they've watched my kids grow up. I love Lee Summit in general. I love that it still has a small town feel while embracing growth and the arts and diversity. And I feel like downtown specifically embodies that. My kids go to Lee Summit Elementary, and a lot of their teachers live downtown, and a lot of the business owners from downtown live downtown. So when we're out walking downtown, we see so many people we know. I lived in Africa until I was 5, and then we moved to the United States, and I've lived in Lee Summit since. A lot of my childhood, my mom was a single mom, and I feel like I was essentially raised by my community and being on council, and it's just such an important way to give back to the community that raised me.
I state your name.
I, Mia Pryor,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
this day of April 2022. The election process was fun. I got to go door to door and talk to people, which is my absolute favorite thing to do, is talking to people and learning about people. I even had people inviting me into their house for dinner or inviting me back to their house to meet their spouse. And I knocked on a door, and the lady that answered the door was my kindergarten teacher. So it was a lot of fun. Is it on? Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Mia Pryor. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I have one on, can you not? Okay. Maybe I went. I love being a council rep for District 1. I know everyone says this, but District 1 is by far, in my opinion, the best district. Raintree Lake, that's part of District 1. I love that community. Actually, my husband and I got married at the clubhouse in Raintree Lake. I really love all of South Lee Summit. I love the growth that they're going to be experiencing soon and that they've already experienced. I wanted to say that if you guys have a concern, please come tell us what your concern is, because we can only address and help with what we know. We're there to kind of bridge that gap between constituents in the city, and we're the voice of our constituents, and we can go to the city and voice what their concerns are, what their ideas are. So if you have a concern, definitely make us aware. So my big priorities are public safety. That's always one of my top priorities. I've always wanted to make sure that first responders were supported. I think that that's super important to me and to many in our city. But also, I wanted to influence the growth in Lee Summit. I wanted to influence the type of businesses we get here and the type of activities there are to do for our families. If we're going to continue to grow downtown, how important it is to focus on people that already live here and the infrastructure we already have in place.
Our first presentation tonight is going to be Assistant City Manager Ryan Elam, who is going to talk about that very exciting Farmers Market Plaza.
But I want to show you the most recent rendering, fly-through video of that. That's really the best way to kind of get a good sense of what this will look like in the near future.
To see it developing into something as big as it's going to be across from City Hall is super exciting to me. I can't wait for it to get built and to start welcoming people into what the farmers market's going to be, but also everything else that goes along with that development.
Okay. You want to hold it?
Don't drop it.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest.
I'm just an average person in Lee Summit that wanted to be a voice of many that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice. Yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm just a mom that cares.
I just want to remind everybody in the room that I'm mayor today.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just
Are you Vice Pro Tem?
Good afternoon. I would like to call the March 11th Public Works Committee meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson.
Here.
Councilmember Lovell.
Here.
Councilmember Pryor.
Here.
Thank you. Before we start, I just want to make one small change to the agenda. We are going to move item B after item D. If you all notice when you read the agenda, there are some items related to the airport that we can kind of put together. So that's why we're moving those, to make it a little more efficient. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Chair,
Yes.
move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell, a second by Councilmember Pryor to approve the agenda as changed. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson.
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell.
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comments? It doesn't look like it. All right. And the first item of business, approval of the February 12th, 2024 Public Works Committee action letter.
Chair,
Councilmember Lovell.
I move to approve the Public Works Committee action letter from February 12, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell, a second by Councilmember Pryor to approve the February 12th committee action letter. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson.
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell.
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And now we are moving on to item C. Mike Anderson.
Good afternoon, Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works. I am going to see if I can turn this thing on. I don't normally do this on construction projects, but sometimes when we're talking to airport, it's hard to visualize some of this. So I am here today, this afternoon, to talk actually about a very exciting project. This is a project that frankly has been in the works for probably 20 years in reality by the time we look at the master plan and implementation of our airside infrastructure. We built that east apron about 15 years ago, and now we're finally going to go forward with the landside development that will support the use of that east side apron. So again, very exciting. So this is actually two projects kind of put together as one. We thought from a coordination standpoint, we had a project in the CIP for the Hangar 2, as well as the east side infrastructure. Because of the coordination of those two projects, we thought it made a lot of sense to just have a general contractor handle both and coordinate both of those projects. So both of those projects are part of this award. The first part is the east side infrastructure. That doesn't mean a lot to people that aren't familiar with the airport, just what that means. So first, it means the basic services, the sanitary sewer, the water, and also coordinating private utilities, power and gas, telecommunication companies to service that area. And then from the infrastructure standpoint, we have the ring road that connects to Hagen, and then also the two service roads to the east apron, which is out here, and then Hangar 1 is the shaded area in the middle. And speaking of Hangar 1, I think when people think of a hangar, they think of a big aluminum box. We didn't really want a big aluminum box, so we went a little nicer. this project, this is the kind of a perspective of what Hangar 2 is going to look like. We do have a lot of office space in there. That is going to be our interim terminal space, our base of operations for our line services and concierge services. And we also have a partnership with the R7 School District that have their Aerospace Academy as part of Hangar 2. So where you see a lot of the glass and the glazing and the awnings, and that's really all that office space. And it really gives the hangar just a nice look. The drawing on the top, that's from the street view. So from Hagen, you'll see the back of the hangar. Those windows on the right, that's kind of an opaque panel that will let light into the hangar during the daytime, so we don't necessarily have to have the lights on. That's one of the things we really saw when we did our tour of other hangars around the country, that just having those opaque panels, just amazing how bright it made it inside. And then the bottom picture is the view from the apron, the view of the hangar. So certainly that's going to be our signature facility right now as we move to the east side. And we did go out to bids. We received 3 bids for the project. Fogel Anderson was the general contractor. That was the low bidder, lowest and responsive. They have a lot of experience with aviation projects as well as infrastructure. So they were selected and recommended for this project. If you looked, it's a total of $16.8 million. If you look at the contract, you might think, well, it's 16.4, but there's actually $400,000 worth of additional fees that we add. That's the fee to bring in Evergy, the Spire gas, and exterior signage. That's paid separate, but part of the contract, but not part of the bid package. So it just made the numbers look a little weird. So with that, and I should say that, again, I mentioned R7 is a partnership of this project. R7's share of this project is a little bit over $746,000. It has already gone to their school board and has already been approved. So they're good to go with this project. It's a great partnership. And with that, I would be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Lovell.
Thank you. So in the partnership with the school district, then, since they're cost sharing in this, they don't pay rent, I assume?
That is correct. So they are paying for their complete tenant finish inside, essentially. Then there will be an agreement where we're sharing utilities and things like that. As a matter of fact, the power is metered separately, so they'll pay their own utility. But they will not pay a monthly rental space or lease agreement. In the event they were to move out of the hangar, then that space becomes the city's.
Great. And then just walk me through, interested in your bid process. I commend you guys for going out and doing that. Just curious how you worked through the design phase, budgeting phase, and then to be able to take that out and feel comfortable with the contract. If you mind just kind of elaborating on your guys' bid process there.
Sure. We've been, if you go back to the design phase, we've been working on this for a couple of years. We had a team, a kind of collaborative team of external stakeholders, internal stakeholders to determine, what, first of all, the master plan was the guiding principle. What size of the hangar do we need? And then we put together the team to talk about the fixed space operations for the city. What offices, what space do we need in there to adequately run Hangar 2? And then did that in collaboration with R7 and what their spaces need. And that was a very interesting process because I guarantee you what we ended up with wasn't at all with what we started with.
Yeah.
There was a lot of iterations to get to this point. Once we got there, then essentially, we're not doing the guarantee maximum price, CMAR kind of approach. This is more of your typical design bid build approach.
Mm-hmm.
So especially because of all the infrastructure. So we just tied the final design product in with our typical civil heavy project. And we went out to bids for it and got, like I said, we had 3 successful bids. And we're very satisfied with the proposal that we received.
Great. So I love the process. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks for answering the questions. Thanks, Chair.
Councilmember Pryor, did you have any questions? I, just real quick, so the breakdown on funding for that was transportation, the transportation sales tax.
Right.
And NTIB.
Right.
Can you give percentages?
I don't know what the percentages are. There's $6 million of NTIB
Okay.
towards the project. The rest, like again, that's 746,000 from R7, and the rest out of transportation sales tax.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a beautiful building. I can't wait to see it built. And I'm so happy about the relationship with R7 and Summit Tech. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity both for the school district as well as the city.
And that won't just be R7 students. That'll be students from the
Right.
private schools and all over.
Yeah, it's part of the Missouri Innovation Campus.
Yeah.
So they tap into schools throughout the area as well as UCM. So.
And just, I have to compare when talking about sizes of buildings. So how is this in comparison to Hangar 1?
It's actually, they're both 40,000 square feet.
Okay.
We're going to use up about 10,000 square feet for the office space, so the hangar space here will be 3/4 the size of Hangar 1. But the building overall is the same size.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, if there are no more questions, I would take a motion for item C, TMP-2921.
Chair,
Councilmember Lovell.
I move to recommend to City Council approval agenda item number TMP 2921, an ordinance awarding bid for project number 477-32472 for the LXT Hangar 2 and East Side Development Project to Fogel Anderson Construction Company in the amount of $16,833,559.53 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell and a second by Councilmember Pryor to move item TMP-2921 to council for approval. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item D, TMP-2940, an ordinance approving modification number 7 to the agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilley, Inc. for on-call professional planning and engineering services for the airport in the amount of $353,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Mr. Anderson.
Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works Operations. This item is directly related to the item we just talked about. This is providing for the construction phase services. So any engineering that we'll need along the way, a lot of the inspections and all the special inspections that are required for the facility itself. Similarly, as we split the cost of construction with R7, some of these construction phase services are also funded by R7, $63,750 to cover the special inspections on their portion of the build-out. So the 353, that's really, it's kind of a high estimate on, how many change orders are there going to be, how many requests for information are there going to be, and things along the way. We don't typically use it all, but we want to just make sure that we have a good enough budget to get through the process. So that's what that is. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, I will take a motion.
Chair.
Councilmember Pryor.
My little microphone's not. There we go. I move to advance to council for approval TMP 2940, an ordinance approving modification number 7 to the agreement with Crawford, Murphy and Tilley, Inc. for on-call professional planning and engineering services for the airport, RFQ number 2020-067 in the amount of $353,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Pryor and a second by Councilmember Lovell to recommend to council for approval TMP-2940. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
and it passes to council for approval. Now, for those of you with paper agendas, we are moving back to the front page, and we're going to item B, TMP-2724, an ordinance approving a state block grant agreement for eligible preliminary project costs towards the preparation of a GA terminal design for the Lee Summit Municipal Airport between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission in the amount of $427,689, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
All right, well, the first two items were spending money, and the last three items are a mechanism for us to maybe get some money back. So, item B, that is for the grant for the design of the permanent terminal building. If you look at the map I just put up, you see here that was the future terminal building that was proposed in the master plan. The timing is a little weird. You know, I'll give you that. We've got Hangar 2. We have kind of our interim terminal as part of that in our FBO. But a lot of the terminal construction is really going to be tied to federal funding. As part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, they put aside $5 billion for terminal buildings, $1 billion a year to be spent nationwide, with a portion of that going to general aviation airports. So we competed for the design of our terminal building to utilize that opportunity that's out there, and we were fortunate enough to be awarded a grant for that design. So that's why we're moving forward now. It looks, like I said, timing looks a little weird. We didn't really anticipate this funding opportunity coming along, but obviously with it there, we're going to take full advantage of it. So this is part of the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure law funding. We're scheduled to kick off the project here in a couple of months. A lot of the legwork's been done because we just recently went through this with Hangar 2. But I will say, in case there's any thought in your mind, did we waste time and effort in Hangar 2? And the answer is absolutely not. As we go forward with the terminal building, now we have to look at, that need. You think about the line services and the line supervisor and our facility maintenance workers. We don't need now to keep them in the terminal building. It makes a lot more sense for those guys to be in Hangar 2 where the action really is. That's where the equipment is. That's where the airplanes are. So it makes a lot of sense not to build a lot of that kind of space within the terminal building. Certainly any office space that we leave in Hangar 2, if we the airport manager, maybe the assistant airport manager move over to the terminal building, that's space that we can rent out to businesses, concierge services, the counter, flight school, charter service. So a lot of opportunities there to repurpose that space. And then the biggest thing is, keep in mind, this is a design grant. It is not a construction grant. There's no guarantee that we're going to get a construction grant. So that's why we, even though we when we heard this was coming, we went forward with Hangar 2 because we knew the need was still there. So really that's it. We are utilizing the same architect, same engineer, because again, a lot of these stakeholder meetings there's a lot of overlap between what we just went through with the Hangar 2 design and the new terminal design. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
So this isn't necessarily coming right out of the master plan. It's more opportunity presenting
No,
itself.
it is right out of the master plan.
Oh, okay.
The Hangar 2, which is right here, and then the terminal building, that was always planned in that configuration right out of the master plan. We just didn't think the two would be, the sequence is off a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Potentially we're kind of advancing the construction of the terminal building because of this funding opportunity.
Okay. Okay.
But it was always part of the plan.
All right. All right.
Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Lovell.
I move to recommend to City Council approval agenda item number TMP 2724, an ordinance approving a state block grant agreement for eligible preliminary project costs towards the preparation of a GA terminal design for the Lee Summit Municipal Airport between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission to the amount of $427,689 and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell, a second by Councilmember Pryor to move item B, TMP-2724 to council for approval. Is there any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
And it passes 3-0 and moves on to council. All right, let's see if we can keep up where we're at. TMP 2937, I think we're all okay now. An ordinance approving a state block grant agreement for eligible preliminary project costs towards the construction of the runway 1129, taxiway Bravo and taxiway Charlie reseal, joint seal and remarking project for the Lee Summit Municipal Airport between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission in the amount of $203,813 and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Okay. Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works Operations. In an effort to maybe improve our efficiency tonight, I'll talk about this grant, but I may as well be talking about the next two items together because these are both grants for the same exact projects, just a different federal funding source. So I'll just talk about it once, and I'm really kind of covering both items. The first one, item E, that was, again, some grant funding that became available through the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's a 90% match for the construction of the 1129 Taxiway Alpha, Taxiway Bravo joint seal project. If you recall, we've already done that project. MoDOT, like a lot of us, are short-staffed and behind on things, and so they're kind of playing catch-up a little bit with the grants. So this work is done. If you recall, we had our final change order a couple meetings ago for this project, but this is just following up now with the grants so we can seek reimbursement for those projects. The bipartisan infrastructure law, again, that was a 90% grant, just shy of $204,000. And the rest of that will be covered in the next item. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions on this one.
Questions? Boy, you're getting off pretty easy today, Mr.
I know it. You guys are all in a good mood.
I would be happy to take a motion.
We're getting money.
We're
This
getting
is a good
money.
thing.
There are
Yes.
never questions when we're getting money. I would take a motion.
Chair.
Councilmember Pryor.
I move to advance to council for approval TMP number 2937, an ordinance approving a state block grant agreement for eligible preliminary project costs towards the construction of the runway 11-29, taxiway Bravo and taxiway Charlie reseal, joint seal and remarking project for the Lee Summit Municipal Airport between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission in the amount of $203,813 and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Pryor, a second by Councilmember Lovell to move TMP 2937 to council for approval. Is there any discussion? I would just like to say you all need to put in a comment or two because taxiway Bravo and taxiway Charlie reseal.
I've noticed that
That's
too.
just the way it reads on here. So.
Comment there.
Anyway, moving on. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
3-0, and it moves on to council for approval. All right, Mr. Anderson, TMP-2938, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission amendment to state block grant agreement, amendment number 1 for project number 22-109A-1 by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, granting federal funds in the amount of $391,546 for the construction of the runway 11-29, Taxiway Bravo, and Taxiway Charlie reseal, joint seal, and remarking project, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
All right. Good afternoon, Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works Operations. I will say I am an engineer, which means commas are never my thing. So, again, this is totally related to the Taxiway Bravo Charlie Project 1129, whereas the other one was the bipartisan infrastructure. This is using our non-primary entitlement money. It's kind of a mix. There's some at 100%, there's some at 90%. It comes in, when it's all said and done, about 91.5%. This is an amendment because if you recall, we had a grant for the design of this project. And so this amendment is amending that original grant for the design to add in some of the construction costs. And I will say, because I just like to keep the fun going, when I look at the last two grants, it's still about $160,000 short from covering our total project costs. So we'll probably have a third one here that we'll get to talk about later. So, but with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson? So, just to be clear, so this is just a reseal, remarking, and you aren't preparing the runways to bring in 737 passenger planes?
Nope.
Just to be clear.
No, we
yet.
didn't change any configuration not ever.
Just kidding.
This was no change, no reconfiguration of the runways. This was just your basic maintenance to increase our longevity and usefulness of the runway and taxiway.
I just like to keep you honest, Mr. Anderson.
No problem. No problem.
All right, if there are any questions, could I have a motion, please?
Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend City Council approval agenda item number TMP 2938, an ordinance authorizing the execution of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission amendment to State Block Grant Agreement Amendment Number 1 for project number 22-109A-1 by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, granting federal funds in the amount of $391,546 for the construction of the runway 11-29, Taxiway Bravo and Taxiway Charlie, reseal, joint seal, and remarking project, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell and a second by Councilmember Pryor to move TMP-2938 to recommend it to council for approval. Is there a discussion? You did a great job of fixing the Taxi Charlie reseal.
I got it.
Nice job. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
3-0, and it passes to council for approval. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much.
Well, because it's Taxiway Bravo and Taxiway Charlie. Stopping, and then it's for the reseal, joint seal. A comma there. It's not Taxiway Charlie reseal.
Mr. Graff, how are you?
Great, how are you doing?
Just fine. Item TMP-2916, an ordinance approving the dual award of bid number 2024-050 for concrete flatwork curb installation and street repair services on an as-needed basis for a one-year term with up to 4 one-year renewals to Quality Custom Concepts, Inc. and Hot Mirror Excavation LLC, and authorizing the same manager to execute the same by and on behalf of the city. Sean Graff, Assistant Director of Public Works Operations.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I'm going to just quickly present. This is our concrete on-call contractor. It's utilized by various departments. We are a fairly heavy user of this contractor. They do all of our repair work for curbing. We also we utilize them for street repairs and sidewalk repairs. Water Utilities is another heavy user of the contract also. Anytime that they have to excavate a utility that's underneath the roadway or a driveway or a sidewalk or some other paved surface, this contract is then utilized to make those repairs, that restoration, when the water repair is done. But there are other departments, Parks Department or Fire Department, Central Building Services will use this contract also. Over the past number of years, Custom Quality Concepts has been our contractor. They've done us a fairly decent job. They did a bid on this bid, as well as 5 other companies. This is the first time in years that I've known that there is more than one bid. Custom Quality Concepts has been the only bidder for quite a few years. Custom Quality Concepts was the low bidder. They did increase their rates, mostly around 4% for most line items. There are a few items, I assume, that are probably heavily labor intensive, that they did come up more than that. Hotmore Excavating LLC was also, they were in and out of low bid, kind of depending on the specific type of concrete application. They seem to be a little cheaper for like a new installation, where a lot of ours is remove and then replace. We are wanting to do a dual award for the simple fact that sometimes we will overload one contractor, and then it will take a little bit for us to get the work done. So we think by awarding the 2 lowest bidders, we might have an opportunity where we can get the work done a little quicker and deliver a little better customer service to our customers. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
That's exciting, because that means roads and curbs are going to start getting fixed. And
Well, we've had a contractor in place before, but yes, we'll keep doing it.
well, no, now that it's coming, it feels like spring is coming,
Yeah.
and that you're thinking about it. It's top of mind, right? Any questions or comments? There you go. If no questions, could I have a motion, please?
Chair,
Councilmember Pryor.
I move to advance to council for approval TMP number 2916, an ordinance approving the dual award bid number 2024-050 for concrete flatwork, curb installation, and street repair services on an as-needed basis for a 1-year term with up to 4 1-year renewals to Quality Custom Concepts, Inc. and Hotmer Excavation LLC, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same by and behalf of the city.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Pryor and a second by Councilmember Lovell to move TMP-2916 to recommend approval by council. Is any discussion? All right, could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
And it moves to council for approval with a 3-0 vote. Thank you. All right, we're moving right along. Item H, TMP-2936, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 721-1 for the water main replacement FY23 project to Wiedemann, Inc. in the amount of $3,598,602 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Mr. Thorne.
Jeff Thorne, Deputy Director, Lee Summit Water. Before we start, I'd like to say that any grammatical or spelling errors in this are the fault of Mike Anderson. We have our annual replacement for our small mains. We go through each year and do a look at the condition of our mains and score every main in our system to condition, and that is kept inside of our GIS so that if we look in there at any given time, we should be able to tell what the worst main in the system is. We then break those mains out and look at areas, because Lee Summit is quite a bit of ground, north to south, east to west, and we try to package them into a thing that makes sense. So what you see before you is something that doesn't run the contractor all over the city, so we pay a lot for mobilization for them to run here and there and fix things and just kind of work in an area on what we believe is the worst grouping of mains we can find. We bid this project and got actually several bids on it. Our pipe bursting projects in recent past haven't gotten that many, so it's good to see more than one. But Wiedemann was once again the low bidder on this. So we've worked with them a lot in the past. They've been an on-call for us. You'll see later in here they're going to be again. They do good work. We've got a great deal of faith in them, and we look forward to another successful project with them. Any questions?
Don't let Mr. Thorne get off easy. Does anyone have?
I don't.
Trying so hard today. If there are no questions, can I have a motion?
Chair.
Councilmember Lovell.
I move to recommend to City Council for approval, agenda item TMP 2936, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 721-1 for the water main replacement fiscal year 23 project to Weedman Incorporated in the amount of $3,598,602 and authorizing the city manager to execute agreement for the same.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell, a second by Councilmember Pryor to recommend to council for approval TMP-2936. Any discussion? Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
Thank you, and it passes 3-0 and moves to council for approval. Item TMP-2942, an ordinance approving the award of bid for project number 811-32472 for the 2024 pavement marking services for a one-year term with up to 4 one-year renewals to Heartland Traffic Services and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Good evening, Susan Berry, City Traffic Engineer, here to talk to you about the contract for pavement marking. In the city, we do have a pretty comprehensive pavement marking plan. We do paint our arterials every year, we paint our collectors every other year, and then symbol work such as stop bars, crosswalks, arrows, all that every 4 years, which is in line with the lifespan of the materials that we use. And so we basically do a 4-year, we have in the past done a 4-year contract, one year with 3 renewals. This year, we have upped that to 1-year term with 4 renewals. The low bidder was Heartland Traffic Services, and they came in under the engineer's estimate. They were the only bidder, but this is very specialized work, and so there's only a couple companies in the metro that do it, and so we're comfortable with we've worked with this company before, and they produce good results.
Councilmember Lovell, did you have any comments
No,
or questions?
no,
Would you
I
like
don't.
to say anything?
I'm all right.
Councilmember Pryor? Yeah, we always like to see multiple bidders, but, you know, when it's specialized work, and what can you do?
We did have a couple of companies pull the plans, but for whatever reason, they chose not to bid. There was a new company out of Kansas that pulled the plans. I looked them up. They were kind of a small firm. They probably realized it was not something they were prepared to do, so they didn't put in a bid. But there were people looking at it.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right, if I don't have any comments or questions, I am prepared for a motion.
Chair.
Councilmember Pryor.
Move to advance to council for approval TMP number 2942, an ordinance approving the award of bid for project number 8132472 for the 2024 pavement marking services for a 1-year term with up to 4 one-year renewals to Heartland Traffic Services and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Pryor and a second by Councilmember Lovell to recommend to council for approval TMP-2942. Any discussion? No discussion? Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
And it passes 3-0 and moves on to council for approval. Item number TMP-2951, an ordinance approving the use of a cooperative contract between Johnson County, Kansas and Weedman, Inc. for She Digs It, LLC and T.C. Fuller Construction, LLC for on-call construction services as needed and authorizing the city manager to execute agreements for the same.
Jeff Thorne, Deputy Director, Water Utilities. This program is very much like what you saw for the pavement program, except for, in this case, we are piggybacking a contract that was bid by Johnson County. When we'd released these in the past, actually they piggybacked ours, and then there's been some changes in what the contractors want for on-call payments to show up on a holiday. Just to come in the door, there's a cost. And so, if you look through these bids, all the numbers varied quite a bit. They chose to award to 3, and we chose to follow suit because there's ways we can use each of these individually and make things make sense. You know, how do we use these? Well, we use them for really small projects that don't really bear doing a full bid on, and I'll give you a couple of examples. When Chase Bank came in and needed an extension to get to them, and there's a pipe needed moved because it was in their lot that wasn't supposed to be in their lot, it just was. And so we had to have somebody come and do it. Because of the way the previous one was worded on emergency work only, that wasn't technically emergency work. So then we had to get an agreement and could bring it through to get it done. This allows us a little more latitude to do that, where we're going to be doing some work on our transmission mains using Pipe Diver, a electronic device that goes through and looks at the interior of the mains. There's got to be some valves removed and some of that kind of stuff. Well, we're hiring an engineering firm to do Pipe Diver piece. They don't do construction, and it's pretty decent sized pipe, so we really don't want to do with it. But it doesn't make sense to bid out doing a few valves and that kind of stuff. We have an on-call. We can use that. And then there's also the emergency aspect of it, where we have a problem that we don't have the manpower or the equipment or maybe even the expertise to dig safely ourselves. And so these types of contracts do that. And much like the paving contract, we wanted more than one player in the game for this. We've had times where they're like, well, we're spread thin. We're taking on one over here and we can't get to you. We need two at least. And so with the award of 3 by JCW, we decided to follow suit and do similar. We have experience with all 3 and look forward to working with them. But this puts us back into having an on-call in pocket because ours expired in January because I'd been waiting for JCW to finish their stuff. And then I got a great deal of help, I want to say this, from our purchasing department and from Scott Eisen to get this all pulled together because it was a bit of a bear because it came to us a little late. So, any questions?
Questions? Okay, my question is, go back to the having a cooperative agreement with a county in another state. So, and I'm reading the ordinance. Our procurement policy allows the city to make purchases from contracts that were originally procured by another entity, but have extended the pricing in terms of the contract to other entities. How does that work? I'm just
well, and I'm not a purchasing expert, so if I say it wrong, Scott, pick me or something. But these guys did a bid, a competitive bid, and actually interviews for this work with JCW, Johnson County Wastewater.
Okay.
And so they've agreed to do that. And in part of their agreement with them, it says we would entertain doing a piggyback contract. Then we provide them with our contract, and they extend what they bid in their terms to us and sign our contract. So it's on Lee Summit's contract with our rules, but it's based on the bid handled by JCW.
Okay.
Is that good? Am I wrong? Uh-oh. Not enough legalese. All right. Help me out, brother.
You know, Jeff is mostly right on this one. But no, as Jeff said, and I think maybe to more directly answer your question, we are not entering into any contract with Johnson County, Missouri.
Right.
What we have is basically there's multiple steps in the procurement process. One is how do we bid it out? You know, the second one is how do we contract it? And the third one is who approves it. So basically this is the bid process itself. So instead of us going out and soliciting bids through a request for bids or proposals, something like this, we're allowed to use another public entity's bidding process that is the same or better than our process. So that's why we're using Johnson County in this aspect, because their bidding process was the same or better than ours. And in this case, since it's construction, there is a great risk to the city potentially. We're not using a regular cooperative piggyback per se, that's a short form agreement. We're using our full form professional services agreement with these companies. So the only contracting entity is the city and these individuals. We're just using the bids that were provided to Johnson County as a basis for ours as far as how much we pay these companies. So.
Oh, okay. No, I assume that you talk to other people in your field with other entities. How do you all find out that, oh, Johnson County just bid out something similar, and how do you?
We've got friends in the field, and what I saw first was they wanted a a show-up charge, all right? If we come out on a night, a weekend, or whatever, they're having trouble getting their crews to do it too. So there's a cost to that. And the Weideman had first approached us with, hey, this is what's going to be happening. They provided us something from Blue Springs and another place. And I knew that JCW, through just talking to them at some conferences and that, were looking at doing this, and I asked how they were going to do it. And they had talked through some process, and when they got done, I felt like their process was really the best. And so I waited till their bid came out in November, but then they went to interviews, then they went to this, and it finally awarded it. So we got it here. So it took a little longer than I wanted, but a little word of mouth, and then asking some questions because the playing field was changing a little on us.
Yeah.
So.
No, I appreciate you answering that. Yes, sir. Mr. Park?
Yeah, just to expand on that, there's also, like through Mid-America Regional Council, they will tend to keep a repository of bids that are bid with the intention of having piggyback clauses or these co-ops. And so you can use and go to their website where they keep a list of those possible services, because it isn't just construction, but there's commodities, there's a lot of different things where a community has gone through the same procurement process that anybody else would go through. So you kind of short step that, and you use their best bid prices, and then you enter into whether it be a short form or a full contract with them directly. So that might be another place sometimes we go look to see if there's another contract available that we could piggyback on.
We look at our stuff, like when we look at our pipe relining and that kind of stuff, I think we're currently using the Joplin contract, but we also get the contract that was bid by Kansas City and Johnson County Wastewater. And so we're basically picking the best price out of 3 different bids to decide on which one we're going to use.
Okay, yeah, I know, it's been a while, I think, since I've seen anything where we've gone through MARC to do this, and it's just been a long time since I've seen us do anything like that. Maybe not, I don't know. All right, any questions from the committee members? Nope, all right, do we have a motion?
Chair.
Councilmember Lovell.
I move to recommend to City Council for approval TMP 2951, an ordinance approving the use of a cooperative contract between Johnson County, Kansas and Wiedemann Incorporated, She Digs It LLC, and TC Fuller Construction LLC for an on-call construction services as needed, and authorizing the city manager to execute agreements for the same.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lovell and a second by Councilmember Pryor to recommend to council for approval TMP-2951. Could I have a roll, or is there any discussion? Nope. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
All right, and it passes 3-0 and moves on to council. Item K, the presentation of the pavement management program.
Good evening. Vince Schmager, Project Manager, Public Works. Tonight I have a short 90-minute presentation on the pavement management program. So we'll get these maps you're looking at here were from last year's programs. The larger map just shows you the number of streets that we actually touched in the city of Lee Summit coming through. Do this. Our pavement management program, what we try to do is we're just trying to keep the good streets good. Part of the management program isn't necessarily rebuilding a lot of streets. They will come in time, but more than anything is the expense of taking care of the streets. It's just what can we do to make them last longer? Because reconstruction is at least 10 times the price of overlay. So for every $1 million you would spend in an overlay or just maintenance on streets is going to cost you 10 to 15 million for that same 1 mile. This last year we did 38 miles at $103,000 a mile. The surface seal was 46 lane miles at $28,000 a mile.
Crack seal, 57 miles. It gets more manageable at 5,700, so that's why we try to make sure we always have a decent crack seal going. And then curb replacement, this is our most expensive per mile of program. It's at $159,000 per mile. So if you were in a neighborhood and you went down one side of the street and you came back the other side of the street, we're looking at $360,000 or $320,000. So money doesn't stretch a long ways. Our funding for the pavement management program comes out of our primarily out of our half-cent transportation sales tax. Currently, the program is $9 million per year. We do get a little bit of extra money from the 15-year CIP tax, sales tax that we put towards the curb program. That gives us about an extra $300,000 to $350,000 per year on that 15 years. Public Works Operations also has a little bit of supplemental as far as their maintenance. It's not so large. They put about $200,000 into curb replacement, just a piece here, a piece there. $200,000 into pothole patching, and almost $1 million into larger scale street repairs. So when we say keeping streets in, good pavement's good, this is what we're talking about. The red line here, if you just put in a street, you didn't touch it, and you just let Mother Nature do its thing with the cars, the trucks, delivery trucks, trash trucks, bicycles, skateboards. Within 12 to 15 years, that street's going to be no longer really serviceable, just because it's going to pothole, it's going to break up, it's going to take on water. Our newer constructions, the last 10 years, the subgrades hold up better, so we're in better shape now than we were before that. But the black line at the top, this kind of stair step there, and they're going ways, that's doing instrumental, still can't say it right, maintenance as we're going across. So if we get in there and do some crack seal, and we do a surface seal, and actually the 2-inch mill and overlay is still considered a maintenance. So, but if we can do those, we're not getting down to where we're having to rebuild the subgrade. And that's where it really gets expensive, when you have to take out 8 to 12 inches of asphalt, dig down the subgrade. At that point, you're probably replacing curbs, improving storm sewers, the whole works. So if we can just maintain what we have and keep it in good shape, we'll go farther with our funding. This is kind of saying the same thing, except for we're using the at what point do we want to do something? We really get down, the good rating, that's number 2 here, is more for the crack seal and the surface seal. We start getting down to the fair, to even poor. Now we're talking a mill and overlay. And so hopefully we can keep everything above that level with the cost. Sometimes when roads do get down into a poor condition, and more times than not that's subgrade, we're still better off to do a couple overlays just because of the cost comparison, even if we're getting 15 years out of the road instead of 25 years out of the road. The pavement management cycle. Here we are, we assess the pavements, we analyze what those assessments says. We see what our budget is, what can we afford to do? We're very fortunate in Lee Summit that we have a funding source for our roads. A lot of towns don't have this, and so they have a lot of trouble finding funds to keep the maintenance on the roads like Lee Summit. What's our annual plan going to be? And then, as you'll see, I'll have a request from you for funding for surface seal, start the construction process after this presentation. This is just a map showing that we do our inspections on a 4-year rotating basis. So whatever we do this year will be inspected again 5 years later. And off to the right, we just kind of see what are we looking for when we go out and look at roads. We're looking at block cracking, which is just large scale cracking. Fatigue cracking, are the streets rutting? Are they breaking into smaller holes? Are we potholing? How much potholing is going on? Is the road actually sagging, whether it's from base failure or service lines? We have water lines across the road. We have sanitary sewer. We have gas lines. We have communication lines. We have power lines. All these go in ditches when they're being built. Sometimes they don't get backfilled adequately. So it'll start looking like a washboard as you're going down the road. So these are the type of things we're looking at when we do our inspections. Once they're inspected, the streets are, that information is put into the paver program, which is just, it's a government program. It's ours locally, but originally it was put in by the Corps of Engineers. And it takes all the information we put into it and breaks that down and gives us a score from 0 to 100. A 0 being a gravel road, lots of potholes, doesn't really work for you. 100 being excellent. Currently, our road average is between 72 and 80. I mean, we have some that are in the 40s. We have a lot of them, and they're in 80 to 100. But an overall score, if you took all 1,100 miles of roads, we're between a 72 and a 78. This is kind of, it's a couple years old, but this is the just a map of the colors, give you an idea of the condition of the road. Red roads to brown, to yellow, and greens being the good roads. So overall, we're looking pretty good on our roadways. Again, back to we're making a plan. What's the road originally made out of? When's the best time to do the construction? We do curb towards the late summer to fall because we want to come back and overlay those streets the next year. We do crack seal at the towards the end of the year when hopefully some of the heat's out of the summer and the cracks have returned back to some of their normal, not so expansive. So here we are. We want to improve, always looking to improve. This year we've actually updated our material anew from the KCMMB, Kansas City Municipal, I'm blanking on the Metropolitan Board. We're upgrading the aggregate and the oil. It's a harder aggregate, and it's actually, the percent of oil in there is actually going up 0.7%. So hopefully that'll help everything to hold together, not crack as easy as it has in the past. We try to take advantage of economics of scale. That's why you'll see a lot of, when we get into a neighborhood, we'll do a large part of the neighborhood. Some of our neighborhoods are so big and were built at one time and the next section was built 15 years later. So it doesn't always make sense to do both sides. But we try to get by the area and take advantage of that scale. Arterial roads, 2, 3, 4 lanes, they a lot of times will be a standalone piece on the project because of their size. Again, our goal is to maintain the roads and have consistency as you go through. You don't want to go around one corner and all of a sudden the whole road's falling apart. Again, as I'd mentioned a minute ago, the curbs and overlay projects are typically stacked, meaning we do a curb project, because the curbing, we actually cut out part of the road so that we can remove the curb towards the street, not the houses, and put them back in, so that gets patched in the fall with the project, but then gets a whole new road the next year as far as an overlay on the road. Crack seal, typically 4 to 6 years, 7 to 9 years after new construction. Surface seal, 3 to 5 years, with depending on how the crack seal looks, how much is the road raveling? You know, is the road staying tight, or is it having little pieces of rock coming over the top, off the top of it, the aggregate? Type of things we look at for the surface seal. Okay, I'm just going to run through each program real quick here. Start with the curb program, because that's usually where maintenance starts, if you will, on the roads. About $159,000 per mile. That's either side of the road, not both. We're just looking to replace the damaged, deteriorating curb. Most of the large neighborhoods you see us go into are going to date between 1980 and 2006. At the same time, part of that $159,000 also includes the cost for doing ADA ramps, making sure sidewalk ramps meet current ADA specifications. Because they require that for us. Just a second. These are just a couple pictures from the curb, removing the curb, the big wheel that actually cuts out the in front of the curb, and then curb machine putting the curb back. Mill and overlay. What I was going to say on the ADA is the federal guidelines require us to make sure we have accessible ramps prior to a mill and overlay. So that's another reason for us to get in on some of these ramps ahead of the curbing. We're just over $100,000 per lane mile last year, with all said and done with the milling, the overlay, and then also the striping that goes back on it. We moved in the top 2 inches, and make any repair if we have something fail. If you see the mill going through it, those things are heavy. If they start dipping, we will dig out extra and put more asphalt in there just to get a stronger surface underneath. Road closure is very instrumental on this. Usually cars can get around. They do a pretty good job of flagging. Neighborhoods especially, there isn't a lot of actually road closures for this. Usually if there's a road closure, it's because they're at an intersection turning equipment around, and that's usually 10 or 15 minutes. And with this, we're working to regain some of the ride quality. So you get rid of some of the dips and not potholes, but the dips and sags that were in the road before we do this process. One of the things here is you'll see this here. Look, you can see the old road and the new road. We do this on our larger roads. We require that the sides be confined. In other words, you take half of it out, and when you take the roller back over the hot asphalt, it pushes it either into the curb or the existing asphalt. Or we have one contractor that will do this, and they'll go back and they'll trim off 6 inches. Because when that asphalt's hot, 300, 315 degrees, that roller gets to the edge, it'll turn that edge down, and we don't want that. But then on the other hand, if you don't roll it, you're not as tight compacted. And we've seen when we get into more than just a residential 24-foot wide street, you start having multiple seams going across. That's where we start to lose the roads, is right down that seam. So that kind of gives you a picture. And here again is a picture of just, you got the big milling machine on the left, top left. Road after half of it's been put down on the right, and then the just asphalt machine down on the bottom, putting down the new street. Crack seal. Probably my second most calls after curb. Just people don't like the looks of it. But for the cost and for what good it does, I mean, it's equivalent to in your house having in your bathroom or your kitchen, putting that caulking along the curb and keep the water off the sheetrock, off the back. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to force the water out to the curbing, out from underneath the road to cause more soft spots. Surface seal. This is a very economical way. It really gives us no support, but it does extend the life. It puts a barrier, a UV barrier over the road. The asphalt doesn't weather as much. It does, if we can keep people off of it and not driving through it, it does leave a good appearance on the road. As I said, the driving, because we have streets closed for 3 or 4 hours. And not everybody seems to be able to wait 3 or 4 hours despite signs at the end of the street, postcards. And because of the way they do it, they jump around a street here, a street there, so we can keep as much open as at a time as we can. Top left, this is machine putting it down. You can see the brown that comes out. This is a cold mix. There's no heat in it. It's just the aggregate, the oil, a little bit of concrete, and it goes down the brown. And then within about 20 minutes, it starts turning black, and it usually takes a week to 2 weeks for it to actually get its final hard set. The top right, you can kind of see the way it's set up to doing a part of a road now and a part of a road later, so they can at least keep traffic going through these roads. And down below there's a final look of what a road can look like with the fresh seal on it. And this is when we have people that want to get on the road before it's been opened. So, yeah, they can track into their driveways and a lot of these, the picture on the right, a lot of that is superficial. If you look at it, it's just right on the top. It's just, it wasn't quite hard enough yet, and it just got marked. It's not actually damaged, but we have a lot of going back and looking at these just because it's not as pretty as a hot mix that's rolled in and put down at 300 degrees and traffic gets on it when it gets below like 160. And just in summary, this is kind of just, I've used this slide, I've updated the amounts on it before, just a typical subdivision in Lee Summit. This is Princeton Heights, Ranson Road under the water tower, the dog park over there. This is subdivision just to the east of it. So today's dollars, if to redo the curb, we redid the curb in there about 15 years ago. So if we were to do it today, it's about $350,000, $370,000 just to do the curb. And the following year, the overlay would be about $560,000. So we'd have, between the curbs and a mill and overlay, we'd have about $1.4 million invested right there. And then about 3 to 5, 6 years later, we'd come back with a $30,000 crack seal. And then a few years after that, we'd be back $150,000 on a surface seal. So it's just kind of gives a visual on the expense on the size of on a 5-lane mile neighborhood. So with that, what kind of questions do we have?
Thank you. I really appreciated that presentation. Councilmember Lovell has questions. Be prepared.
44 slides. I like it. So,
I didn't renumber after I taken a few out.
no,
I was just trying to scare everybody.
Well, it's interesting. I know that there, we see a lot of work on the roads, and just kind of seeing how it all gets done is great. This might be for Mr. Park, but in October of last year, Overland Park changed their street standards to require single-family and multifamily residential streets, collector streets, and super collector streets to be constructed with concrete pavement. Not saying, just curiosity, and their thought process with it was a little longer life, less maintenance, roughly over the period that, be kind of the same cost or whatever, but specifically they were trying to avoid a lot of the chip seal costs, I guess. We ever thought about anything like that, or what are I know that there are challenges with both methods.
Well, yes, it has been thought of. There's a careful balance, especially when you talk about the standards for new development. And I know it's a challenge for us to try to reduce the costs of building the infrastructure for development, especially on residential side, to lower the cost point of housing. It is a lot more expensive for the concrete up front. Now, over the lifespan of that roadway, it's going to be cheaper. And so it comes down to what is the initial cost to build the subdivision versus what is the lifetime cost of that homeowner or the next homeowner who's paying taxes for that street to be reconstructed over time. And so we have not pursued changing our development standards to require concrete streets in the same manner that Overland Park has. We do evaluate it on all of our capital projects, and you're seeing more and more of our capital projects being built in concrete because that initial cost difference between an asphalt road and a concrete road has been diminishing with the oil prices that have gone up. That cost differential has been reduced, and we know that the overall life cycle cost of concrete is much cheaper than the overall life cycle cost of an asphalt road. And so you're seeing like Colburn Road and Chipman Road and Pryor Road, a lot of these projects are coming out concrete now because we do take into account that life cycle cost of the roadway itself. But that life cycle cost is a much more difficult argument to make for new development because obviously it's
passing on that cost to the developer, and then we get the benefit of not having to the maintenance on it.
So their initial cost is reduced by our current standards versus a concrete standard, but then the burden on its replacement is to the taxpayers.
Gotcha.
Hopefully that made sense.
No, that did.
Not just a lot of rambling.
And thankful to know. I think that's great. I don't know aesthetically or what, but where we are taking the opportunity to do concrete where it makes sense to do that, at least exploring both options. But I didn't have a strong position either way on it. I just noticed that they had done that and was curious your thoughts, and appreciate the presentation, and it was very thorough and enlightening. I like it. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Pryor, did you have any questions? Back at the beginning, I think it was like 43 slides ago. No, you made a comment about inspection, the initial inspections to inspect the roads. So is that eyes on guys driving around in a truck? Because I thought at some point we had talked about a different process
They do have processes out that they actually come in and have truck readers. They are very expensive, and we haven't gone down that route yet.
Okay.
What we've done is going through the program, we use our capital project inspectors in the winter when the projects are less and they have time. And they actually have maps with pages that have all these, and they actually walk out and we inspect 10% of our roadways, 10% of each street, each section.
Okay.
So this block to here, then we skip the block. And so we try to get an average of what those are and actually go get out the truck, walk out, and they measure, walk off, but they get a measurement on how much block cracking, how much longitudinal cracking, how much traverse cracking, are there dips in the road, has there been repairs, utility repairs or pothole repairs? And so they're actually getting out of the truck and putting all that information. Then they come back in and enter it into the computer.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we had talked at one point about a different process.
There's a couple
Revolving-
different companies
Yeah,
that
drones or, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a question? Councilmember Level?
So what about, and I know this from, so let's say there's a new development and they've got to tear up a portion of our road. I was thinking of out by New Longview. They're like, and then they came in and repaved it and there was like an indention and it was like you would bounce on it. I assume that goes back to them. Like if they're coming in and they have to disrupt our roadway, they're required to bring it back to the standard that it was before. And then if there's an issue, I guess we
It
know
goes
to.
back on the development to correct what the issue was.
Gotcha.
Because they're matching us.
Gotcha.
So if our road needs a realignment in an area or whatever to make it happen, usually that's coming in, whether it's on a development agreement or just part of the development.
So you guys, I mean, assume you come out and inspect it, but then later it kind of recessed and it caused that hole. So then someone makes you guys aware of it and then we would go back to them and they incur the cost to get it back up to the standard. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. Development Service Department has inspections for development activities, even those that are like on current roads or they bore under a road. And so they'll look for those things. Now, sometimes after the development project is done, but not too far after they're done. We'll get reports from citizens and we encourage those so that we can follow up with our right-of-way inspection group out of Public Works. And then they will say, hey, there was just recently development activity here. Let's go back to the development team and say where are their outstanding responsibilities, and we make them do the corrections.
And I think that happened here because it was fixed pretty quickly after. I might have mentioned something to you or sent something in and, yeah.
So in that particular case, there was still an active development that it was associated with where they had bored a utility under and they just didn't get the compaction under the roadway right, so you saw a dip develop.
Great, cool. Thanks, Chair.
If I don't have any more questions, so I appreciate this. This is a good presentation.
Thank
A lot of good information. All right, and so I assume you presented that in order so that we can go to TMP 2941, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 792-SS for the Surface Seal FY25 program to Vance Brothers, Inc. in the amount of $1,441,995.29 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Correct. Vince Schmager, project manager. This is, as you said, for the Surface Seal program. This year's program, we're going after almost 44 lane miles of road throughout the city. It is funded again by the 0.5% sales tax. We issued the bids on February 8th. Vance Brothers on the opening was a solo bid, which is normal for this project. The way this process goes, it's a very specialized process. There is another company in town that does this, but not to this scale. They do a lot more of the same type of materials with the same type of projects or the same type of materials, except you're talking parking lots or some of the smaller towns where instead of doing 48 miles, they're doing 10 miles. So they can get in and be competitive on that. But part of that is also they're buying their oil through Vance. So until we get another company in here competing with Vance on that type of materials, they're going to be our sole bidder. But the pricing compared to other regions around Missouri is competitive. Try to look at that whenever we have sold year after year. The price is tweaking up. They were up right at 4% over last year's construction price index was, last year was up 4.6%. So, so they're working right along with those numbers. Since I just went through that presentation on the, this is meant to seal the road after it's been crack sealed. We're trying again to keep the water out, protect the asphalt, keep the oil from drying out as much in the existing asphalt by putting this polymerized aggregate mix over the top of it. With
And-
that, what can I answer?
And you said 44 lane miles.
Yes,
And we have how many lane miles of road in Lee Summit?
1,106.
Okay, so,
As of this afternoon, or 1,109, my bad.
may have changed since we've been in this meeting, I don't know. Could have, I don't know. Okay, yeah, that just shows you the cost of, yeah, it is expensive, the whole thing's expensive,
But maintenance is always expensive.
yeah. All right, are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
Chair,
Councilmember Pryor.
I move to advance to council for approval TMP-2941, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 792-SS for the Surface Seal FY25 program to Vance Brothers, Inc. in the amount of $1,441,995.29 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilmember Pryor and a second from Councilmember Lovell to move TMP-2941 to City Council for approval. Any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Edson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
3-0, it moves to council for approval. We are now to roundtable. Anybody having a roundtable? Councilmember Lovell.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I really appreciate the work all of our departments do and how you bid things and your transparency with that. And it helps us so much. And it's not always low bid type. Yeah, I joke about it up here, but I just really feel you guys are great stewards of the taxpayer dollars, and I appreciate all that transparency that shows through up here in your presentations and all the work that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Pryor, you have anything? No? I think I've been on this committee 7 years, and this may be the first time I've chaired a meeting, so that's exciting stuff. Staff? Staff roundtable.
I don't have anything, but, yeah, you have one more. Maybe you can chair one more meeting, right? So
Yeah, so,
we'll see.
yeah, we'll see what
Guess
happens.
it's up to Chairman tomorrow.
All right, seeing no more comments, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.